Sciatica can be a real pain in the ass, so I've got some tips for you to help you with some pain relief. Hello healthy people, I'm Richard and welcome back to Exercise for Health, and in today's video I'm going to give you some relaxing positions, gentle exercises and stretches that can help bring you some relief to sciatic pain. If you're new to this channel, we offer tips, advice and exercises each week to help you manage your health condition with physical activity. So go ahead and tap the subscribe button below and the bell icon if you want to be notified when we upload a new video. So sciatica refers to a condition where the main root of the sciatic nerve branches off from the spinal cord between the 5th lumbar vertebrae and the 1st sacrum vertebrae. And this gets impinged by a bulge or a herniation of the intervertebral disc. This can happen at any age through poor posture over a period of time, really weak core muscles, or in most cases through a sudden movement of the spine with a load that compromises the correct mechanics, like bending over to lift something off the floor with straight legs and a bent spine, or moving a weight away from the body while twisting the spine. Depending on the side where the impingement is will depend on which side you get the symptoms on, and it's generally associated with pain, numbness, weakness or a pins and needles feeling that can radiate through the buttock and down one leg, even as far as the big toe on your foot. Now there are other conditions that can cause similar symptoms of sciatica, where pain radiates from anywhere around the lower back and down the leg, the most common being Piriformis syndrome. But there are others, including spinal stenosis, cord equina syndrome, and even arthritis of the hip. And I'll cover these in a future video. But for today, we'll focus on sciatica, and it's important to make sure that with all these exercises, you should be experiencing a relief from the pain. If you feel an increase in the pain from it, then stop doing it straight away. Also, you can do these daily as a way of managing your symptoms, and even though I'm going to go through a few different ones, you only need to do the ones that work for you and make you feel better. So now you know a bit more about the condition, let's go through these tips to help you. Right then, as I go through these tips today, just to make you aware that the red sock that I've got on the right foot, that's just to signify the side that I've got the sciatic symptoms on, so it'll help you then when you come to do your exercises and stretches. So the first one we're going to do is do some traction or decompression of the spine. So for this you're going to need some pillows. I've got some pillows here on the floor. I've also got a sleeping bag that's quite high up, and I'm going to be led over the top of it so that the pillows are actually going to be underneath the hips. So it's going to raise my hips up in the air. Therefore then gravity is going to then take over on the legs and on the upper body to try and then pull everything down to start to see if we can get the spine to come apart. So I'll start off then. I've put up 2 pillows and the sleeping bag. So I'm going to go over the top. So the hips are over the top. So I've got my knees on the floor and I've got my elbows on the floor. But I'm going to start to move those further away just so I can start to relax down onto the pillows, and then head down on the floor. And I'm just going to stay there for about a minute. So I'm just going to relax out. So I've got gravity acting down this way and then also down this way down my spine. So it's just helping the spine to decompress. Okay, now after you've done it for a minute, you may find then you need to lower down, so we can move one of those out the way. So I'm then starting to go a little bit lower and hold that same position, and then gradually you'll get to a point where you can then lower it down completely, so you're flat on the floor like so. And then when you get to this position and you've done that for a minute, then what you can do is on the affected side, you can bring the knee up round to the side and just relax in that position, and that will then just start to help decompress that one side. So that's the first tip, which is decompression or traction. Right, the second tip then, it can be really useful, particularly if you sleep on one side. So for this one, again, I'm going to use a couple of pillows, and what I'm going to do is lie down on one side, but the affected side where I get the sciatic symptoms is going to be on the top. But I'm going to place the feet together, one on top of the other, up on the cushions, and then the knees are then going to drop down onto the floor. And that'll be my side lying position. So just where we get that little bit of rotation, again, it's just going to help just to take and ease a little bit of pressure away from that sciatic nerve. So that's tip number 2. Right, the third tip is called a banana bend. And basically for this one, it's laid down on your back. So what I'll do is I'll bring my feet together and my knees together. Once I'm in alignment, I'm then going to shift my hips slightly away from the affected side. So where I've got the right side affected, I'm going to shift my bottom over to the left as far as I can, but keeping my feet and my shoulder blades flat on the floor where they were. So I'm just going to try and create that bend. At that point, I'm then going to drop the knees over to the affected side as far as I comfortably can, and then I just relax in that position and just hold it. So again, it's just another way just to help sort of take any impingement off that sciatic nerve. So this is a great one for if you're in bed for a back lying position. Okay, the fourth tip then is to help bring you some relief, particularly if you're in a standing position for a long period of time. So if you're queuing up in a supermarket or something like that, and you start to get some of these sciatic symptoms. For this one, what we do is we'll have our feet shoulder width wide, place the palms of your hands just into the lower part of your back, so just above the bottom, but sort of on the sides in the lower part of your back. And from that position, I'm going to try and keep my head where it is, like my feet are going to stay still anyway, but I'm just going to then push my hips forwards to start to get a little bit of extension into the lumbar part of the spine. And I'll hold that position for about 10 seconds, and then I'll relax. And it might be, depending on how you feel and how your symptoms are, you might want to repeat that 2 or 3 times. So this is a good relief exercise when you're in a standing position. Okay, tip number 5 is called seated flossing. And for this, you need to be sat down on quite a high sort of position to allow the affected side to freely move the leg as you extend the knee and let it bend again underneath you. So for this, once you're sat down, you want to try and sit yourself up tall. So try and get a little bit of extension in the spine straight away before you start. And basically the movement is you're going to straighten the knee, trying to pull the foot and the toes back towards you on that affected side. And as you extend the leg, you're also at the same time going to lift your head up to look up towards the ceiling. Then as the knee bends and the foot drops, you're also then going to allow the chin to drop down towards the chest. So it's basically from that position to that position. And just do it slowly. And I would say do up to a maximum of 10 of these. So you don't want to aggravate the sciatic nerve too much, but you might feel some of the symptoms sort of start to come back in. But hopefully that'll start to radiate back up towards the back, so they'll start to disappear from the lower leg back up towards the lower back. Okay, so tip number 6 is we're going to look at what's called baby press ups. So for this, when you're in a lying front position, you're actually going to try and push through your hands, and the important bit is not to try and use the lower back muscles to try and lift your chest up away from the floor. The difference between a normal press up and a baby press up is literally the hips are going to stay flat on the floor. So the starting one, the easiest one to start off with, would be to have from your elbows to your hands flat on the floor. So your elbows are underneath your shoulders. And then from there, as I'm looking straight down at the floor, I'm going to push through my arms just to let the chest come up away from the floor. So I'm getting that extension down the lower part of the back and then lower back down. So most of my weight should be going through my arms. I'm not actually lifting my torso with the muscles in the lower part of the back. I'm actually pushing everything through the arms. Okay, now after a while you might find you can get a little bit more movement as it begins to free up. So therefore what you can do is you can bring the hands a bit closer and then start to come up. So you're pushing up through the arms this time. So it's just giving you that little bit more movement. So the hips are staying on the floor, but we're just getting that extension of the spine as you come up to get your arms straight. If you find that's too much, you can have your hands further forwards, and then as you push through the arms, you won't get quite as much extension. But obviously the closer your hands are down towards the hips, the more of an extension of the spine you're going to get as you try and push yourself up. If you want a further progression for this one, then you can do similar to what we did with the decompression position, which is where you bring your affected side knee up to one side, and then you can do the baby push-ups from there. Okay, so that's baby push-ups as an exercise for sciatic pain. So the next one then is called the cat camel, and basically for this you need to be on all fours. So I'm on my knees and I've got my hands that are arms, so that the hands are directly underneath the shoulders. And then basically from there I'm going to do the cat position. So that's where I'm going to try and tuck the tailbone of my spine underneath me, which humps the back over, and I'm going to allow my head to drop down. And then I'm going to go to the camel position, which is where I tilt the pelvis forwards, so the belly button's dropping down towards the floor, and then I get that opposite extension of the lumbar part of the spine. So going from one position, head down, to the other position, lifting the head, foot up and forwards. So that's the cat camel. And as we've done with the others, go for about a set of 10 repetitions for this one as well. Okay, tip number 8. This is more of a stretch for the piriformis muscle. And the piriformis muscle is the muscle that comes around deep around the side of the hip here. And the sciatic nerve actually runs underneath the piriformis muscle. So if it's tight, which is the condition called piriformis syndrome, that can actually then put pressure on the sciatic nerve, which will give you the sciatic symptoms. So this is sometimes quite a worthy stretch to see if you can just release some of that tension in the piriformis. So from a backline position, my affected side leg, I'm going to bring that foot, where I'm getting the symptoms down this leg, up across onto the opposite knee. And straight away, if I try and just push that knee down away from me, that's going to rotate the hip, which is going to stretch this piriformis muscle. And already I can start to feel a mild stretch around the side of the hip. Now to increase it, if you find that's not enough and you need to go a little bit further, then the supporting foot that's still on the floor, start to bring that foot in closer towards your bottom. And by doing that, that's going to start to bring this leg closer towards me, which will create more of a stretch. But if you still don't feel it, then what you need to do is put your hands through to grab hold of the leg that's still on the floor, and then start to then bring that leg up towards you, which will then further increase the stretch on the piriformis. So whichever position you need to use to find the stretch, hold it for about 20 to 30 seconds, relax, and then maybe do it a second or even a third time. So that's the stretch for the piriformis muscle. One final tip is not an exercise, but a bit of advice, and that's to be careful not to load the spine with a heavy weight. For example, if you're a gym member and you use the shoulder press machine or lift a weight up in a seated position like a military press, this movement puts pressure through your spine, adding to the pain and to the risk of making the herniated or bulging disc worse. In addition, if you're squatting with the weight on your shoulders, this will also have the same compression effect and could also make the problem worse. Instead, look for exercises that will help decompress the spine, like a lat pull down or vertical traction machine, or even just hang out on a bar and let your legs be pulled down through gravity, alleviating the pressure. I hope these tips help bring you some relief for your sciatica. If it did, please give it a like below to help this channel grow so more people can benefit from these videos. And remember, stay active, keep moving, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video today, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click here to subscribe to this channel or click here to watch a recent video. See you soon.